Fujifilm Instax Mini 12 versus the Instax Mini 11. I'll look at the features of each camera, compare the image quality, and then recommend which one you should get. I'll put chapters in the timeline, so feel free to skip ahead to the part that you're interested in. And if you still have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. Both cameras use the Instax Mini film, which usually comes in the packets of 20 like this one, and this is the size of the final print. The Instax Mini 12 costs $80, and the Instax Mini 11 costs $77. They are both available in a variety of pastel colors. The Mini 12 came out in March of 2023, and the Mini 11 came out in March of 2020. So I guess they introduce a new camera every 3 years or so. Both cameras use two AA batteries, and for best results I recommend use high quality batteries like Duracells. Both of these cameras are very similar, which makes sense because the Mini 12 is a replacement for the Mini 11. But here are the differences. The first big difference is how you turn on the camera. On the Mini 12 you twist the ring around the lens to extend the lens like this. On the Mini 11 there is a button you push down here that extends the lens like this. The second difference is how you engage the selfie or close-up function. On the Mini 12, you just twist the ring a little bit more like this and extends the lens so you can shoot a little bit closer. To engage the selfie function on the Mini 11, you have to pull at the end of the lens like this, and that's how you get into the selfie mode. This is a lot less elegant than the Mini 11 mechanism, the twisty, and also one downside of the Mini 11 mechanism is that once you take a selfie and you want to take a normal shot afterwards, you have to turn off the camera completely and then turn it back on. But on the Mini 12, you can toggle between normal and close-up shots as much as you want. On both of these cameras, the flash always fires with every shot, but the Mini 12 should have a better modulation of flash, especially at close-up distances. Here's a test shot that explains the last big difference between these two cameras. I took a close-up portrait of my son with both the Mini 12 and the Mini 11, and I gauged the close-up or selfie function on each camera. The picture is sharp from each camera, but the one big difference that you can see between them, that on the Instax Mini 12, my son is perfectly framed in the middle of the picture, and on the Instax Mini 11 he's a little bit to the side, and there is a reason why it's like that. So let me explain. The problem with these cameras is that the lens and the viewfinder are two separate things. So as you can see, if I put the finger right here, the lens can see different thing that the viewfinder can see. So when you're taking a picture of something really far away like a landscape, the difference in distance between the lens and the viewfinder makes no difference. But when you're taking a picture of something really close up like this, you can see that the lens sees the finger perfectly and I can't see the finger in the viewfinder at all. So for that, they used a little trick on the Instax Mini 12. So when you engage the close-up function like this, it changes the viewfinder a little bit to correct for the difference between what the viewfinder sees and what the lens sees. And this is called a parallax correction if you ever see it on different cameras. So high-end rangefinder cameras, those are cameras that have lens and viewfinder separately, have this type of correction. They've had it for over 100 years. But on the Instax Mini cameras, it's pretty rare. So the Instax Mini 90 has this correction, but the Instax Mini 11 does not have this correction. And that's why if you take close-up portraits or close-up pictures of anything, on the Instax Mini 12, you will have a much better framing than on the Instax Mini 11. Next test was a landscape in bright sun. There seems to be very little difference between these two pictures. Both the Mini 12 and the Mini 11 overexposed the landscape a little bit, and that's a really common problem with Instax cameras. All of the Instax cameras from Fujifilm, they can't really handle super bright scenes like snow or beach and anything midday sun. Everything will be a little bit overexposed. In some ways, this is a special look of Instax pictures that will be always a little bit overblown, and some people like it because it gives you kind of the nostalgia. I'll show the picture from the iPhone how that looked in real life, and it's perfectly exposed. But the difference between the Instax Mini 12 and the Instax Mini 11, well, there is no difference. The Instax Mini 11 maybe is a little bit darker, but that could just be a variation from picture to picture. So for this test shot, bright outdoor landscape, no difference between these two cameras. Also, the sharpness between these two pictures looks about the same. If you find this information useful, please consider subscribing to this channel. I have almost 100 Instax videos posted on this channel. The next test shot is an indoor portrait. This is probably the most common picture that people will be taking with the Instax Mini 12 or 11 cameras. This picture kind of simulates what the kind of picture you will see when you're taking pictures of the party. So this was taken inside of my apartment. There are some artificial lights in the background. There is also a window there, which sometimes causes issues for Instax cameras. Then I also have some string lights, and the camera always uses flash. In both pictures, my son is in the middle, and he's illuminated quite nicely. And both cameras have slow shutter sync, so the background also is pretty bright and looks pretty nice. The composition is nothing great, but it was just a test shot. I would say there's no difference between these two pictures as far as quality. In both of them, my sun is exposed quite well. The background in both of them looks the same. Sharpness, again, the same. So no difference between Instax Mini 11 and Instax Mini 12 for kind of like the party scenario when you go to a party and you're just snapping some pictures with flash in an artificial living room. The next test shot is an outdoor portrait. In this picture, I had my son sit on the balcony on the sofa. There was quite a bit of natural light coming from its side. The light overall was quite nice. I took a picture with the iPhone and I'll put it on the screen to see what it looked like. In both of the examples, I'm a little bit disappointed by the performance of the cameras. They both fired flash, which is completely unnecessary in this case. There was plenty of light. And in both cameras, the Mini 12 and the Mini 11, my son is a little bit overexposed. Maybe it's because he has a dark shirt and his face is pretty light and he's on the dark sofa. But I am a little bit disappointed how these turned out. The Mini 12 is a little bit better exposed. I'll show close-ups on the screen than the Mini 11. The Mini 11 is even more blown out. Unfortunately, if you're taking pictures with lots of contrast between light and bright areas, the light areas are probably gonna be a little bit blown out. Overall, not a huge difference between these two cameras. The Mini 12, a little bit better in this particular case. The next example is a distant landscape close to sunset. In real life, the view from this pose is actually pretty nice. It was close to a sunset. There are mountains in the distance and there is like a nice old building closer to me. And you can see in the iPhone picture that the iPhone can handle this wide dynamic range between the bright mountains in the back and the darker foreground. But unfortunately, the Instax film, the latitude of the film is not that wide. So the difference between the bright and the dark areas, if it's too large, the film can't handle it. And you can see in both of these images, the mountains in the background are blown out and the foreground is almost completely dark. The building in the middle is decently exposed, but on both of these, because it's a little bit darker, the camera used a brighter aperture and the building is a little bit soft. So you can see that on the bright landscape, the buildings in the distance were pretty sharp because it uses a small aperture where you get more depth of field. But in this particular case, both on the Mini 12 and the Mini 11, the building is a little bit soft. So I would not recommend use either of these cameras when it gets a little bit darker outside. At these distances, the flash doesn't do anything, so don't think that the flash is going to eliminate the landscape. When it gets darker, it's better to just use your phone and save the film for other pictures. If you are taking pictures of somebody in the foreground, so you can use the flash where the flash will work, that should work just fine. But for landscapes, when it gets close to dusk or sunrise or sunset, don't use it, you're not gonna get very good results. Overall, there's not a huge difference in picture quality between the Mini 11 and the Mini 12. The Mini 12 is better, especially if you're trying to take pictures of close-up because of the correction of the viewfinder. But overall, the price difference is essentially non-existent between these two cameras. This one is $80, this one is $77. So at this point, I would definitely recommend the Instax Mini 12. It is a better camera, it's newer. I really like this twisty mechanism as opposed to the push mechanism. It does have the viewfinder correction, so you will get better close-up performance. If you get the Instax Mini 11 on some turbo sale for like half the price, so let's say this would be $40, this would be $80, then the Instax Mini 11 makes sense. If you already own the Instax Mini 11, there probably isn't a huge reason to upgrade to the Instax Mini 12. You might want to upgrade to the Instax Mini 90, but the difference between these two cameras is not worth upgrading from the Instax Mini 11 to the Instax Mini 12 for $80. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.